Welcome, everybody, to the weekly Probate Mastery Group coaching call. Lots of familiar faces here. Thank you, guys. I want to start this week by giving Dwayne Olson the thank you he deserves. I rushed off to make a 4 o'clock call last week. I had to abruptly end the call. You followed up and came through, made an introduction with Jason. So we actually recorded a podcast today about all the ins and outs of reverse mortgages, and then more specifically how those apply to the probate situation, and also how you can really leverage a reverse mortgage lender as one of your team members to build a referral network. So Dwayne, I really appreciate you, especially as a first-time attendee of the call. I've looked for quite a while for the right lender who shares the same business values and ethics that we find to be present in pretty much everybody in this group. So I appreciate that introduction. And
You're welcome. Thank you.
and Fed, you seem eager to get it out, man. What do you got for us?
Any notes so I don't forget what to tell you. I didn't think I'd get to this as fast as it did, but obviously talking to you, I always feel more comfortable doing things I have little to no experience in. And what that is, a family friend reached out, says she wants to sell a condo that she has. Her partner bought it in cash for her years ago. Now, I don't know if they're married, but I think they've been together for 20 plus years. So he bought her a condo as an investment for her. And one of his friends resided in the condo up until I think a month ago, until he passed. Okay. So he lived there for free. She now wants to sell this condo, sell or lease. The condo is obviously in a relatively distressed condition. She said, what should we do? And I said, look, I'll provide you with options and then we can do whatever is best for you. So if you wanted to lease it, we should do ABC to prep it for the market. If you wanted to sell it, you could either sell it as is, or we could do some tweaks in order to try to maximize what you get out of it. After I viewed the property, I realized that given the price point, it's something that I may want to acquire myself and flip, right? Because I explored both options. The first option was to buy and hold and keep it as an investment property. But then I saw that the monthly cash flow versus how much I would have to invest to acquire it just doesn't make sense, right? So buying it and flipping it makes sense. Now I'm trying to figure out how to properly structure it so that she doesn't feel that it's, hey, I was here to help you and now I'm trying to make money off of you, because I'm not trying to. I'm just saying, hey, this is fair market value. These are the expenses associated with selling this asset. I'll give you that right now, but I also want to be transparent and let her know that I plan on putting work into it and selling it. I've been kind of beating my head against the wall at figuring out how to not come off as taking advantage, because I'm not trying to at all. I want to be as transparent as possible.
Sure. Awesome question. One that we've dealt with a lot. I had a conversation this morning with one of the most prominent divorce real estate trainers in the country. And we're very much aligned on business values and ethics. And the one place where we deviated, and I challenged her on this, is she doesn't believe in dual representation. Neither do I. I don't mind taking two sides of a commission, but you can't ride two horses with one ass. You pick a side and disclose to the other. So where we disagree in a healthy way is a practitioner should never be a principal. And I wholeheartedly disagree with that based on my experience. And the house I'm sitting in here, the house that I'm completely rebuilding in West Virginia, those were both scenarios where I bought the asset with between 15 and 50 cents on the dollar. And like, you'd think, what idiot would ever do that? It's because the family has no money, no patience, or no more bandwidth to actually improve the asset to raise the equity level. The way I buy homes is by telling them exactly. And if you follow me for very long, I'm not Chad the realtor or Chad the broker or Chad the investor. I'm Chad until the last few minutes of the conversation. After I've toured the home, I've heard them out, I've heard their stories, I've looked them in the eye, then I become Chad the transaction engineer and I lay out options. And this is why I agreed with her, because I've seen how powerful this is in my own business so many times. David Pannell is another great example of how you can do this correctly without creating liability for yourself. So I'll go all the way back to business structuring and we'll start. I believe that if you're going to be a real estate professional, and I don't mean the IRS definition, the Chad Corbett definition of real estate professional is somebody who knows who has the skill set and the ethics and the transparency to monetize every real estate conversation, whether that's an acquisition, a disposition, a listing, a consultation, a limited agency fee, a referral that you indirectly monetize. I don't care. That's a real estate professional, just in my definition, someone who can make a deal out of any conversation, as long as you have someone who owns a real estate and they have a willingness to sell, even if there's not clear title. So that person can approach this in such a way that they can say, all right, listen, I have options for you. And you've heard my story about Pam. This is exactly how that happened. I didn't disclose agency because I didn't know if I was going to be working agency. I selfishly wanted to buy the house. So my first offer to her was $88,000 cash, close in 2 or 3 days. Because of the urgency of the situation, I knew I could pull a string with the title relationship. Option 2 was as is, where is. Option 3 was sell the personal property, cosmetic rehab, go to conventional market. Option 4 was a creative financing strategy where I was actually paid as a consultant, not actually a principal. She chose option 4. But with her, she knew exactly what I could sell it for on the open market. She knew exactly what a cash offer for me or anyone else would be. And when she made her choice, that's when we had the disclosure conversation. Okay, so Pam, it's clear to me now that my role in this will actually be as a consultant. So I'm an advisor to you. I'm not a fiduciary. I'm an advisor to you. I'm not your real estate agent. And I need to make this clear. Now, when you come down to the legal side of this, the reason I encourage you to structure your business the way a lot of folks in this community do, you have a separate entity. And for your realtor business, that can be a sole proprietorship. But for an investment side, if you're making acquisitions, if you're holding assets, you should always have a legal entity. My choice is a single member LLC with an S Corp tax election, which once I get over $140,000 in revenue, I don't have to pay FICA and I can actually enjoy a lower taxation with the same protection of an LLC. Let's just say in my case, realtor entity was a sole proprietorship with a separate business bank account from all of my personal finances, separate credit cards, E&O insurance, and an umbrella policy. My investment business was a single member LLC, taxed as an S Corp with its own bank accounts, its own EIN, its own checkbooks, its own credit cards, its own set of QuickBooks and everything. So I had a very clear delineation of who I was at any given time in any conversation with any prospect, client, or customer. That has been tested. I've been reported for practicing brokerage without a license when I was acting on the investor side of my business. It was very easy to convince the state investigator that nothing was done wrong. Full disclosure was I was in compliance. I had disclosure on my website, disclosure on my contracts. I literally had initialed on that because of the complexity of that creative finance strategy. One of the pages in the closing document is literally a checklist. They have to initial, I acknowledge and understand A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And they do that in the presence of an attorney, and it's a notarized document. So those are just really advanced, like really CYA, right? Cover your assets. Make sure nothing can ever get blown out of proportion. Nobody can ever say that this was implied agency, that he lied to me to make his own profit. Down to in my investor contracts, I seller acknowledge that Chad Corbett is a real estate licensee currently, or has been a real estate licensee in West Virginia, Tennessee, and Hawaii. And he is only entering into this transaction as a principal with the sole intent to make a profit. Now, if you sign a purchase agreement with that level of disclosure, what voice do you have in a courtroom to say, I didn't understand, there was implied agency? So what I would say is your approach is good. You've already disclosed each of the strategies, what true market value is. And just make sure you've got your risk contained by your business structure and your insurance strategies. Where you have insurance, you've got a personal umbrella policy that kind of drapes over all of that. Now, when it comes down to the actual people part of that conversation, if you remember in session 3, I actually gave you a seller net sheet and I show you how I do that. So I run the scenarios in a very simple model that basically says, here's a cash scenario. Here's an as-is sale scenario, and here is a fix and flip scenario. I'll start with the highest price because that's what everybody wants, right? Hey, you can sell this house if you go through, and I estimate probably 6 to 9 months based on available materials and supply chain disruptions and labor shortages. I estimate that you would have about X number in repairs. Your ARV, your after repair retail value would be this, but that's after 6 to 9 months of construction and incurring these expenses and managing the process. I can introduce you to contractors. They can do it, but you still have to make design decisions. You have to make material decisions, and not if, but when things go sideways, you have to be there and interact with the team that's actually doing the work. But you can achieve this ARV if you want. And at the time, I'm reading their body language, and you can just see the overwhelm on their face, because if they don't have any experience doing that, it's not all HGTV, right? 90% of that footage is edited out. It's not a very easy thing to do. Trust me. I bought $23,000 of materials in the last 72 hours, and I've been like across 4 states just to do one little house. So it's a very challenging time to do a renovation if you don't have a proven system and if you haven't sourced materials and have access. So then I'll step them down to the as is scenario. So let's talk about something a little bit less intimidating, a little easier, that's a lot less risk for you. We can sell the home as is, where is for this number. How do you feel? And that means like we waive contingencies. Inspections are welcome, but we're not renegotiating the price. Obviously, the buyer will understand they're purchasing some of the risk and they have to do the work that we just referenced. So they're going to discount the valuation because now that's their responsibility. And you're making a concession to have the convenience of that. You're making a price concession. So that's option 2. Option 3, and I'm just going to disclose right now, we're not in an agency relationship. I want to be clear. I'm not representing you as a fiduciary or as an agent or as a broker or a sub-broker. I have a personal interest in this option because I know what's ahead of you if you choose to renovate the home. And I have a team, I have processes in place. So what that looks like is, in order for me to take on that 6 to 9 months of risk, financial risk, time risk, market condition changing is a risk, and interest rates rising is a risk. For me to take on that risk and be able to sell at this ARV and still turn a profit, my cash price would be right around X. Now, considering everything we've talked about, I know which one of these I think is best for you, but it's not my job to come here and tell you what the best solution is. It's my job to come here and listen to you, understand your goals. You tell me which solution best meets the needs. So that's how this is. If you have any questions, but just gut reaction, try not to overthink it. How do you feel? Which of these do you feel is best for you? And then shut up. I don't care if there's 3 minutes of dead air and silence. Do not say a word, and have a contract ready to slide across the table, pre-filled purchase agreement with your LLC. And when they say, Fed, I think it's really just time to get this done. Let's just move forward with option 1. Then you slide the contract across the table and you present a blue pen. They will sign every time. So you're not making them an offer. You're giving them a choice and asking them to choose between 4 offers or 5 offers. And it won't be perceived as predatory. I don't care. Your broker will be fine with it. The state board of ethics will be fine with it. If you do it as specifically as I said, you won't have any problem. You're not creating liability for yourself. And this is the eternal debate that I have with investors, why you should have your real estate license. Because if they choose the brokerage solution, you still monetize the deal. If they shoot your cash offer down and that's all you have to offer, well, good luck. You can call that one a junk lead, but you came up short. There's nothing wrong with the lead. They own real estate and they have a motivation to sell. You ran out of skill set. So don't worry about your liability as long as you've taken those structural business steps to protect yourself and compartmentalize the activity, and you're clearly disclosing if you have an agency relationship or not.
Okay. No, that makes sense, because that's where I was I was stuck there. I had no idea I've been researching all sort of materials, all that stuff, where to source that. But then I said, until I have acknowledgement on her end that she's aware that is an option that I would like to provide her, and her realizing that in that case, I'm not representing you, then that's where I just didn't know how to formalize that. So thank you for
The other option that's on the table for her that we haven't discussed is kind of a hybrid version of this, where you offer her the cash value as a basis value for the asset, and it's as like the way it sits today.
Mm-hmm.
So let's just say that's $200,000 in your market.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So Miss Seller, in this scenario, this 4th scenario, I'll actually do all of the work that I just referenced, and this is, you pull this out if the others don't work for her. Something else I just thought about that I should have probably scoped out here is, what if we sell for that fix and flip price, but instead of me purchasing the home from you, I actually partner with you. So your risk is owning the asset that you've already owned for 20 years. You've been comfortable with that so far. It's a rhetorical question. So in my mind, I'm creating a link of, oh, okay, he's asking me to do something that I'm already doing. Why would I have an objection with that? Okay, so we're going to give you the $200,000 basis value on the current value of the asset. We'll then roll the title into a land trust or whatever vehicle our attorney says is best. It could be an LLC with a clearly defined operating agreement, and your share based on the cap table in the operating agreement, you would have 200,000, and I would take the estimated repairs and expenses, labor and materials and all that, which is really hard for me to determine right now. So I'm going to have to estimate that upwards because of supply chain issues. But the way this works, we would roll the asset into an entity where our interests are both protected, especially if one of us were to pass away. We want to make sure that it's properly structured with the help of a California state attorney. And then I'll bring in the crews, I'll bring in the capital, I'll bring in the system, I'll go source materials. If you'd like to be part of any of it, we can talk about that. But I do have a very polished, proven system that I can use that if you don't want to be part of it, there's no issue. What this will look like, as I said, in 3 to 6 to 9 months, depending on lots of other variables, we'll actually take this home to market as a conventional retail listing. I'll be the listing agent. We'll do our typical high-end marketing package. We'll sell it once commissions, closing costs, and everything else come out. Then we'll be left with a net figure of what, the proceeds minus the basis. So you obviously get your $200,000 basis back first. You get paid before I do, obviously. That's your level of security. What's left over, let's just say that's $100,000 for the sake of easy math right now in this conversation. So I have earned a commission. I may or may not have taken construction management fees. Cost plus 20 is pretty reasonable. And then in addition to that, so once all those fees, like net of all of those professional service fees, what we're left with as joint venture partners is $100,000. So you get an additional 50,000 above and beyond the 200, and I get an additional 50,000. So both of us can have a scenario where we can make more money and we can put a better home into the community. You have a higher quality neighbors. It's win-win-win. So how does that one sound? And that I usually reserve that because it's more advanced. It's hard for a lot of folks to wrap their head around. If any of the other more common solutions don't work for them, that's an advanced solution that can actually rope almost anyone back in. The other thing that will do is they'll be like, oh, that just sounds too stressful, too complicated. Just give me the cash offer. And it'll drive them right back to the one that they were most leaning toward, but they hadn't shown you yet. They didn't make a choice. So that's 4 very distinct offers that we can give on every single appointment we go on.
And so I've seen some licensed developers or investors, let's say it's a multiple offer situation. A lot of times they have the competitive advantage, though I've seen some go in and say, hey, Chad, I understand you have 4 or 5 offers. I'd like to be considered. I'm actually a licensed real estate agent. I'll throw in my commission as part of the offer. Essentially, you're paying less. So purchase price in this for fair market value and as is condition is 400,000, right? And at 6% commission, I believe that's right around 24,000, something like that. But that would be a full 6. So would you come in as far as you consider the 400 minus maybe just the list side, since there would be no list side, and then minus the repairs? Or so for example, at 400,000, 3% of that, let's call it, I don't know, 11 grand, which would bring it to what, 389. And then let's say there's 10 grand in repairs, that makes it 379. Is that where your cash offer would then be? Or would you subtract more or less or not?
So for me personally, and I can't even remember where I came up with this particular number, but I chose 18% as my minimum acceptable margin on any transaction or any investment.
Was it 1.8? 18?
18, 1.8.
Forgot.
So if I can't earn, and at 18%, your money by the rule of 72, divide 18 into 72, I think it's 3.6 or 3.8. What that means is at that rate of return, your principal will double every 3.6 years. So for me, that was a goal I set early in my investing career. I'm like, all right, you've got to have a minimum yield. I see these guys buying 6 cap single family home rentals, claiming to have passive income. They work 60 hours a week. They're dealing with insurance, gunshot wounds, police calls, fire. There's nothing passive about it. But for me, I was looking at a minimum 18% for it to make any sense. So in that scenario where you just laid out, okay, here's, the commission, the fees, that you just back that number in. You say, all right, I want to make, and it can be arbitrary. You can say, I don't want to do a deal where I make less than 50 grand, and you could deduct a flat 50 off of that, and that gives you your price.
Yeah.
So it's really, that answer is kind of personal to you. What is your tolerance for return, and what's the risk you're taking? What's a number that helps you balance out the fear and the excitement?
Okay. Fair enough. Fair enough. I'll keep you posted on it. It's still super fresh. So right now, just kind of since in the event that she does want to go to market, there's still roughly 30 to 40 days before that takes place. So I'm doing all the maneuvers necessary in the event that if I do become the principal in that, then great. If not, and I'm the agent, that's also great. I'll keep you posted for sure.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. And David has been listening intently, and I haven't given him an opportunity to speak. David has done this as much or more than I have. I'd like to hear if you have advice for Fed. David, please step up.
Yeah, time kills all deals. You just said 40 days, man. Oh, it's painful. Painful.
I'm getting ready ahead of time so I can make the offer if need be.
No, are you doing this over the phone? Are you communicating over the phone, or you already set the appointment with her?
I already went to go see the unit with her, but at the time she was talking about, can you let me know how much I could sell this for and how much I can lease it for?
And she wasn't leading anyway, like she wasn't giving you some clues?
No, because so they're very wealthy. She and the partner are very wealthy. The property's paid in full. So I wouldn't say they need the money, but I think she realizes that with the market conditions right now and interest rate going up, she's going to make the most amount of money now.
Man, I hear you on calls all the time. I don't think you're pushing the right questions or something, because you're missing out on deals. I keep hearing back to back. I don't log into all the calls here, but every time I hear you, you're dragging stuff out, man.
I hear you.
Oh,
Get him, Dave. Get him.
Painful. Well, I got a good story. Y'all want to give me like
Yeah, let's hear it.
foreclosures are back. So obviously I prospect them, and I love out-of-state probate people because it's harder to get a hold of them, but I also love bad data. I love when the phone numbers are wrong, because it takes a little bit more initiative to find the person. If the landline's disconnected, or if the cell phone's disconnected, or if it's not on beenverified.com, if it's not been used in 2 or 3 years, and that's the only number on all your resources. So in Deal Machine or whatever tool you do to find homeowners, or expressoagent.com, if the number's wrong, it's a really good door knock. I went out to this house and it was vacant. So I went to the neighbor's house on both sides, and they said they moved out more than a year ago, but they saw somebody at the house within 6 months getting the mail. And I said, is it a female or male? And they said, it's a female. So then I went back on Been Verified, and out of 20 relatives, there was 14 females. I called them all. Unfortunately, I got a hold of one of his ex-wives, and he was a sex offender. So that was a bad call. That was a horrible call, because he went to jail for 14 years in 1993. But the thing is, though, he has a record of an address where he's staying, and it's a halfway house. He's been living there since he got out of jail, so since 2010. And I meant to go last week, but I went last night, and he was on the porch. I rolled down my window, and there's some guys just hanging out, just chilling because the weather's nice. I said, hey, does Dennis live here? She said, I'm Dennis. He's on the phone with his wife talking about selling the house. So within 2 hours, he signed an agreement for me to buy the house, and nobody else has called him. They were just about to call the postcards, and I have a contract, but we still need the payoff amount for foreclosure. So really good story. Really good story.
Awesome. What's your strategy on that one, Dave?
Most likely flip it, because it's going to be good numbers. It's going to be probably 120,000 below market value. Dude, I really want to break the habit of wholesaling. I've been wholesaling for 3 years, Chad, and I just want to break the habit because it's easy money, but it's time that I do some burrs or some rentals.
Most of it goes to the government when you wholesale or flip.
Yeah, just
Something that I would be interested in watching you get into, Dave, is what Kat and I call the long flip, actually holding the asset. So get it in minimum rentable condition on a 6-month lease. And then 6 or 7 months in, pull it off the shelf, start your construction. And then your title transfer happens after 12 months and a day. Then you're into long-term capital gains. You'll make double-digit percentage more profit, and you have the business systems and the skill set in place. Of all people, that's something I would encourage you to flip houses, but flip them a year at a time. Just start stacking inventory on the shelf as 6-month rentals, then pull them off and cycle them through as retail flip. Close on it, do a quick cosmetic rehab like LVP flooring, fresh paint, maybe appliances and countertops. Just CapEx that you're okay throwing away or reusing in other houses of that level. Like for me, I had 3 levels. So I had a low income level of rehab, a working class, like middle market rehab level, and then I had a luxury. And I would always categorize every house before I did my scope of work and design. I would always say, okay, this fits in one of those buckets. And that I pretty much had like even a materials list. I knew which flooring I was using. I knew which tile. I know if the tile was laid on grid or on stack, if I was using a Schluter system or just regular backer board, like whatever went up fastest, or a fiberglass surround. So I think you're ready for that level, like running multiple strategies where you acquire a house, do a quick turn on it to do a cosmetic rehab, get it into a being a nice rental property on a 6-month short-term lease, then pull it out of inventory, put your crews on it, and then take it to market as much 366 days after your acquisition. And you will have profited through the holding period. Someone else paid your holding cost. And then you'll actually make double-digit higher returns because of the taxation on it. I think you're at the stage in your career, and that works for any of you guys, as long as you're well capitalized and you're not using debt to actually hold the inventory. Dave's enjoyed a 7-figure income and cash reserves where he can actually self-fund that strategy. Now, if you have an index universal life plan, or if you have free and clear assets with home equity lines of credit, you can bank your inventory that way too, using that infinite banking tactic. But I think that's your best play on that. Fed, I want to shine a light on David's response, even if you have to go back and watch this recording. When I asked him what his strategy was, he doesn't know, does he? Did he let that hold up an acquisition decision?
Hell no.
He made an offer that he can live with regardless of the strategy. It takes growth to get to that point, man. I'm not like throwing darts at you here. He's seasoned in this. So for me, it took a while because I was like, well, until I know exactly what I'm doing with it, I can't buy it. And eventually I got to a point where I'm like, 25 grand makes it exciting for me. I made an offer, and listen, this is not me, but I found this couch the other day, and I do this in retail stores all. I found a one-of-a-kind, custom designed, top grain leather couch with alligator leather arms. It is the most beautiful piece of furniture art I've ever seen in my life. And I'm building this other probate house I bought is getting turned into like a mountain chic, something you'd see like at Vail, because I got it so cheap. So I threw that number. I'm like, I'm super comfortable at 25 grand on a $175,000 house. And she's like, oh my God, I'm so happy to sell this to you. And like immediately gave me a hug. So now I've got room to play with fixtures and furnishings. It was actually in way worse shape than I thought. But so I was in a furniture store and I decided I didn't know what I was going to do if they said yes. But on a $20,000 sofa, I offered them 5 grand cash. And I'm like, I got 5 minutes. I got to move on. I got to go to the next store. 5 grand cash. Let's do the deal, or I'll just move on. I don't need this, but I'd like to have it. And the guy was just like, what? And Christine was with me. She's like, it's amazing how decisive you are. When you see you want something, you just get it. And they came back and countered me at 10. And I left them. I'm still playing the game with them, but who the hell needs a $20,000 couch? But if I can get it for 5, it's a fun story. We'll see. We may post a photo of that couch, Cat, in the show notes. But what I want is for you to really pay attention to the level of risk tolerance David has been able to build. You have several exit strategies, even if you get into a contract. I am not the coach that tells people just get it under contract and then go whittle them down on price after inspection. That's a bunch of horse, if you ask me. But make an offer you're comfortable with, that you're excited about. And if they say yes, you've got multiple strategies. Dave bought this at a price. He can turn it into a short-term rental. He can turn it into a long-term rental. He can turn it into a slow flip. He can do an immediate flip. He can turn around and sell it with owner financing to a green card holder that can't get conventional financing because of the area he's in Texas. So he's got ultimate flexibility. But he was confident in his offer, and he'll figure out the strategy next. And that's ultimately what I learned. Like the last house I bought, not including these ones that I've used in these stories, but that house that I bought in 1 hour and 45 minutes when I was holding the deed in less than 2 hours, I had no damn clue what my disposition strategy was. But I knew it was all about you make your money buying houses, not selling them. And I knew the neighborhood value. I'm like, okay, I think my disposition strategy, it has to be either long-term rent, like a BRRRR, or I have to do something with creative financing. Either way, this is a short fuse. I got to act fast. Bought the house, cleaned it out, was moving toward the BRRRR model, decided I would try to put it out, see if I could get a $69,000 down payment and then carry a note. And sure enough, I did. I found a Cuban truck driver who couldn't get conventional financing, had lots of cash, stable income, and he took me out. You'll get to a point where you're comfortable just saying, hell with it, I'll buy it. And then you figure out after the ink dries.
And a lot of people are just not leaving offers. They say they have to go check their numbers, or they actually work for somebody else that's going to write the offer. And then it's like 72 hours after that. Don't be that guy.
Yeah.
We leave offers and we'll write them and we'll anchor them. You got to anchor people, and they will tell you what they're at. They will tell you if they want to be a listing or they want your services as a realtor or to buy it as cash. And I'm not leaving a house. And yeah, I've left houses and left offers on the table. They can shop it, but most cases they're going to just look you up and then accept the offer.
Yep.
But nobody's leaving offers in writing.
And we've talked about it in this community before. I've only made this mistake twice. The first time I made it, I was too green. I showed up, I shook hands on a deal. I didn't have a contract. I ran back to the house. And when I came back, they had ratified with another investor who was scheduled after me. The second time, it was New Year's Day. I was 125 miles away. My Google Voice line rang. I ran straight to the house, didn't come and print out a contract, didn't have one in my truck. And the same damn thing happened. It was one of those scenarios like we started in this conversation. I said, this is, as a rental property, is the highest and best use because it had a steep driveway on a busy road. I said, this is a rental property. I can sell this as a broker for around $50,000. And they're like, listen, we just want 21 today. We're only here today. We've got to get back to South Carolina. And I said, done. We shook hands on it. I wasn't gone for 2 hours. A competitor came in, told a bunch of bullshit lies about me, papered the deal, ratified it, and moved on. And that's on me. Sure, he's paid the price for his ethics, not at my hand. That's just how the world seems to work. But I learned my lesson. And you never, ever go on an appointment without a pre-filled purchase agreement and listing agreement. You've got the instruments you need to execute whatever strategy the family determines is best for them, period. Never go on appointments without pre-filled contracts.
You will 100% lose a deal when you do that. Most likely.
I never thought of that. And I actually couldn't agree with you guys more than I do. I just realized that I've done that numerous times, and it just, as Dave was saying, the time kills the deal, and then you leave or someone else signs it.
Second you lose, the second you lose 50% chance of ever seeing them.
Yeah, oh, for sure.
They're expensive lessons. Most people don't see them as lessons. They let their ego tell them, well, it wasn't me, it was blah, blah, blah. I take accountability, and I have small numbers because of the values in my market. But those two little lessons and they were both probate houses, cost me $50,000 to learn that lesson. Like my profit on those deals was at least $50,000, depending on if I would have, held them long term, it could have been hundreds of thousands of dollars. We're talking 7 figures on most deals that you miss, right?
Hey, question for you. And so one of the things that I was doing prior to going to this seller or owner or whatever is I'm seeing if I'm financeable to begin with, given that being a realtor and being in an LLC, there's write-offs and all that stuff. So obviously you look like you make a number because of write-offs, right? So I'm trying to figure out if I'm financeable before even, I don't know if that's just, again, analysis paralysis getting in the way, or if it's a smart thing to do.
No, it's smart. You should always know what your finance strategy is, and you should have that in place, because what that's going to do is elicit confidence in you. You could have just uncovered your apprehension, and that expensive lesson you learned might be because you don't believe in your own finance strategy.
Yeah.
If you're looking for the BRRRR strategy, like if you're looking to build a rental portfolio, then you're talking to a community bank, and you're talking about an asset-based loan. They don't care as much about your income as they do the rental numbers on the house. So as long as they can get, bare minimum for that's a 1.25% debt coverage ratio. Most lenders are, as you establish a new relationship, they're going to be looking for a 1.3 to 1.35 DCR. If the asset covers that, and it's easy math to do, you can get to your offer price that way. Okay, market rent is $1,100. At $1,100 at 12 months at a 25% expense ratio, I figure that this much left over, the DCR is X. And then you can back into your price by actually underwriting the deal like your lender is going. So you should be talking to community banks, the commercial side of community banks, about asset-based lending. You should also be talking to the more conventional side of the bank about making mortgages to your business, which are going to come at a better rate because they're going to be conventional. That's not a portfolio or non-QM loan. You should also have hard money lender conversations, and you should also leverage these high net worth relationships you have. How much money do you think most of those people make on the majority of their portfolio? Like, what do you think their returns are single digit, double digit, triple digit?
Think they're double.
I
At
doubt
least
it.
for the people I know, they want double.
Okay. Well, you know some pretty savvy individuals, because many wealthy people think 7 and 8% in a garbage mutual fund with 3 layers of fees is a good investment.
Yeah.
I think that's a fool's portfolio. If you ask, if you have over $1 million net worth, you should be investing in some of the other things we've talked about here, syndications. I mean, if you have $1 million net worth, excluding your primary residence, you should never tolerate less than like an 18% return, true annualized return. And you should be looking for multiples of no less than 3x in a 3-year period on investments like that. So it sounds like those people, you might have them in your network, but a good example, attorneys, doctors, dentists, surgeons, psychologists, like prominent psychiatrists, people that are in that higher income bracket that literally don't have time to make alternative investments. They make the best private lenders in the world. And the ones that already know and trust you are great places to start. So look at any guy in your sphere of influence who's working more than 80 hours a week. He is underutilizing his cash, and he has cash sitting in pricey financial products such as REITs, mutual funds, ETFs, index funds. It's all garbage because he has access to so much more. He has access to you, and you can pay him X% on the money, whatever you can get. You can oftentimes get money at 8% all day long from people like that. And there's no underwriting. You close quickly. You can close it in days. Like when I'm the lender on a deal, I usually close next business day. I can do my underwriting in 10 to 15 minutes in the markets I lend in. All I have to do is pull up PropStream. If I'm in Roanoke, I may drive by, make a couple phone calls. I can quickly underwrite, and I'll have the wire set up for the next morning. So get all of those players on your team. Get the community bank guy lender from the commercial side. Get your conventional lender. Get your private lender. Get your hard money lender, and have all of those set up. If you already own assets free and clear, even if they're not free and clear, if you own assets with equity, then I want you to set up lines of credit on every one of those assets. It doesn't cost you money to let it sit there if it's a home equity line. As we've talked about before, I use First Citizens Bank. I take mine to an 89.99 LTV. I don't know why that's the magic number, but basically a 90 LTV. So when I buy a house, I'll do a really good job fixing it up, get a nice high appraisal, take 90% of it and put it in place as strike money. Then I got a bank. What things we haven't talked about, we did mention index universal life. We didn't mention retirement products. If you have a 401k or an IRA, especially if you've taken advantage of the self-directed aspects of retirement accounts, I would nudge you to get rid of both of those because they're on the chopping block. And in the current political climate, I think it's a gambit. But for me, I actually restated all of my retirement accounts to a QRP, or qualified retirement plan. And what that is basically a solo 401k trust that has all the benefits of self-directed accounts, but it's unlikely to be tampered with by politicians because it's what union pension funds and billionaires use to structure their own retirement accounts. So it will be the last place they try to make policy changes. A lot of this is political theater. So if you have retirement accounts, push them over into a QRP, and then guess what? You just created another bank. You can now borrow your own money on deals that you won't personally be living in, and deals where you're going long flip. You can trigger unrelated business income tax by flipping houses with these types of accounts, unless you hold it for at least 12 months and a day. So just be aware of the tax code when you're doing that. But you can bank yourself using index universal life, using whole life, using retirement accounts. You can also be your own finance strategy.
And the QRP, does that go under your personal name or your business? And
You'll choose to put it under one of your businesses for the benefit of you personally.
okay, cool.
And with that structure, the other reason I chose that structure, as a single filer, you can pack away 57,400 a year, I believe is the number. It may have changed, but as a joint filer, you can actually put away 114,000 bucks a year.
Wow.
All of mine is Roth directed because I believe my goal is to make more money next year than I did the year before. And that sounds like a fun goal to take all the way to death, right? Why the hell wouldn't I be thinking that way?
Yeah.
So for me, I anticipate a rising income for the rest of my life. So why would I ever want to defer taxes? That's a fool's errand. They're going to have to claim back the $6 trillion in funny money they printed. And who are they coming after? They've slapped bullseyes on anyone who's accredited, anyone that makes more than 200,000 a year, anyone who has a single member LLC, anyone who has an S corp. So we've been forewarned. They moved the goalpost. So let's respond accordingly and get in a position where we can take advantage of the loopholes they left in place for themselves. So that's why I went to a QRP structure. You can buy anything with it. You can buy gold, you can buy crypto, you can loan money to yourself, as long as you're not an unqualified party, meaning that you can't live in it. You can't collect big fees off of it. You can do work, but you can't charge, unreasonable fees. Family members, like immediate family members, can't directly benefit from it, live in it, be the contractor on it. So just understand the boundaries you have to play in that space. With an IUL, that's a rich man's Roth, is what it's jokingly called, but it doesn't come with any of those laws or restrictions. You go make yourself a loan and do whatever the hell you want with the money. The main reason I put that policy in place at 35 years old was I helped enough of these families and saw the struggle of trying to sell houses in a hurry to get long-term care taken care of. So with the IUL, one component was self-banking, but the other components were long-term care insurance, chronic illness, terminal illness, and disability insurance, all rolled into a single premium. And I can borrow against the death benefit at any given time for any reason. So yes, get clear on your finance strategy. You'll be way more confident in your appointments.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Thank you. I really appreciate that. Thanks, David, as well.
Man, we're running at a 500 level today. Good conversation, guys. All right. I have not been able to keep up with the comments because I've been running my mouth too much. Let me see. Lynette, you've been patiently waiting. You had your hand up. Let's go to you first.
So I had questions and they all changed, but I wanted to say, so if you go by Fed. So thanks for prompting this. I have a case study share at the end of last year. I partnered. I did everything wrong. I didn't have the structures in place correctly. I did I did all kinds of disclosures. Everyone was happy in the end, but I took so much risk. I thought I might die. Like people were like, what's wrong with you? The stress was overwhelming. So Chad, I wanted to say I appreciated you outlining the options and the structures because I'd heard them before and I did them on the fly. I did them poorly, still got it done. Everybody made money. I put a nice paycheck in my bank account and she made $600,000 more than she would have. So it was a beautiful scenario and it's pouring referrals. And now I need to put something in place that doesn't have me in jail or broke.
I want to extend an offer to you. Christy Duffy, I don't think is on this call. Do you remember watching her video? We did a live one-on-one coaching. Anyway, you can look that up. Kat can drop it in the comments. I'd like to offer that to you. So I normally coach at $2,000 an hour, but I'd love to capture what you just said in long form. Let's talk about your mistakes. Let's have an honest conversation about that. And then let's get a clear strategy in place for you going forward. And let's let everybody else watch if you're comfortable with that.
I'm totally comfortable with that. I think as long as I'm not, I'm like more risk. Like, can we do, it's like if I'm deposed, maybe it's actually not that bad, but it felt that bad. I'm happy to do it though.
Yeah, no, you're a valued member of the community. You're consistently here and contributing. And as long as you're comfortable with it, I think a lot of these faces, especially the ones hiding behind with their video turned off right now, I think they can greatly benefit from you being willing to admit your mistakes or acknowledge that you had blind spots, but you didn't let fear eliminate opportunity. You proceeded through it. You learned from it. And I would really like to celebrate that, like the courage you have to stand up in front of the community and ask for that. If you're willing to do it, I'd like to.
Entirely. I'd be delighted. Is this like fashion don'ts for real estate investing? You had said something, I don't know the language or the jargon. It was something about green card holders, Cubans. So I'm in Denver and we have a lot of people in our community that can't get funded. And when they can get funded, it's beyond something they can structure or come up from a cash basis. And I think there's so there are many that are actually near and dear to my heart that I'd love to see them in a position where they're putting their money in generational wealth and they have family to take care of and they understand it. They just can't come in and Denver market and pay cash. We're seeing things starting at 700 go for $1 million. And I know I'm not telling anybody anything different. So I heard lease purchase, I heard become the bank, what do we have to offer there? Because I'd like to put it as
For non-resident immigrant finance option.
yes, that's
I'll go back to my own ignorance, the period of my own ignorance. I didn't realize how much the right practitioners were needed by the immigrant community. The first time I actually met one of these families who had the desire and had the wherewithal to own a home, but they didn't have the cash to buy the whole home. They could afford debt service, but they didn't have access to debt. Can you imagine leaving everything and everyone that is comfortable to you, going to a country where you don't speak the language, having the courage to do that, finding a way to become employed, get a regular income, get all the other pieces, like clear all those obstacles, and then save up a big chunk of 30 or 40 or $50,000, not understanding the U.S. finance system, and then being like, I'm going to buy my family a house. I've been working for this for a decade. And you walk in and a loan officer says, oh, you don't fit in that box. You're a non-QM borrower.
yep.
We can't help you.
I mean, you take a resident in a non-QM scenario and it's palatable. They structure these notes beyond a normal risk assessment and it really bothers.
So there's an obvious need for this. I would argue that there's an obvious need for immigration reform that allows more of those really tenacious immigrants that want to be part of our community and our GDP. I think that we need to look at that. The other part of this, before we move on to the strategies, a lot of people aren't aware of this, and I wasn't until I started doing lease with option to purchase. Immigrants from Muslim countries don't actually want to engage. Their religion, in some cases, the sex of their religion will actually prevent them from engaging in a U.S. finance system. So they have a financial system based on shared risk. So oftentimes their morals and like what they feel is their moral obligation to their faith won't allow them to participate. Even if they could qualify, it's not something they're going to do because it goes against their culture. So that was a shocking piece of news for me. Well, guess where I went? Every damn convenience store I could find and ask, are you the owner? Because I know lots of business owners with lots of cash that either don't want to participate in the U.S. finance system or aren't welcome to participate. They've got driver's license, they have jobs, they pay taxes, they pay sales tax, but they can't participate. So a lease with option to purchase is a good way. Now, you need to make sure they have a path to citizenship or a path to repay that to actually close with cash. This is where business owners are very good. If you have an immigrant that's their green card holder, they own a landscaping business and it's throwing off 150,000 a year in passive income and true net operating income. Well, they need to live. So you can sit down with them, determine what their cost of living is, like what those do, a financial worksheet, and then say, okay, so here's a savings plan, almost as if we would hand them a mortgage amortization table. Like you can buy this home, you can enter your family can move in this home on a lease with option to purchase. You can take $20,000 down and then you'll pay $1,500 a month in rent. I want to incentivize you to close as soon as possible. I don't want you to look at this as a rental. I want you to aggressively save from your business income to pay this off. Once we get you into it, I'll give you access to that money because once you own the asset, then the banks look at you differently, right? Then you're in the rich boys club. So if we can get you into this home with a cash acquisition using a lease with option to purchase to let you control the asset until you can afford to close on it, then I can get you closed on it. Then I can get you over to my lender who will happily do a home equity line of credit because it's not being sold in the secondary market. And you're not tried to put in some box that a hedge fund won't agree with because they're buying it on the secondary market for the 14th time. And then they look at you like, I don't know what you said, Mr. Corbett. And you're like, it's okay. Do you trust me? Will you? And I don't get paid unless I do exactly what I promise and you move forward. So you can use a lease with option to purchase. The other thing is depending on your situation, your own finance strategy, take the house subject to, put them in place as a tenant with an option, take the house subject to, sell it with a wrap and a second position wrap where you actually service the mortgage. They pay you a mortgage payment higher. That's the second, the wrap and the principal. When I was with all the leads, as COVID set in, I did a session called Shift Happens. And episode 4 was all about the 7 tactics that I've used for creative financing in the probate space. And I want you to watch that. It's about 2 hours long. I move at a very fast pace because I cover a lot of information. But basically, any of those 7 tactics will work for the solution you're looking for.
Okay.
You guys brought up, you and Lynette brought up something very interesting. So I don't remember if I don't usually speak about this. I don't really like to, but I will just because we're on topic. So my parents actually never purchased in the US, not because they didn't want to, but because of the challenges that you're referring to. They're both diplomats. And at the time that they were not retired and that they were working, it was, I don't want to say close to impossible, but basically the terms that were offered were so unappealing. To kind of give you an idea, no one would give them a loan for anything, even though they made good money. No one would give them, no bank would provide money under 18 or 19% interest. So obviously my parents said absolutely no, and they just rented for almost 30 years. And now they're just kind of saying, oh, we wish we had done this. But when you don't have, to your point, the people steering you in the right direction, or at least with the knowledge to present you with these types of ideas, with the lease with option to buy or anything like that, it sucks. If you can provide that knowledge to they always wanted to, they could have bought something. They just didn't have all of the cash all at once, and rightfully did. So they didn't want to pay up to 20% interest higher.
Of the difference in their personal net worth at now versus what it would have been had they been able to generate wealth with compound interest over that 30-year period. Like, it creates a divide, like it creates division, it's segregation. So by stepping up as a transaction engineer, as we always talk about, you can actually make a huge difference on the long-term legacy outcome for these families. And that's something I didn't realize until I did. And when I did, I couldn't unsee it. And I'm like, I don't know how to do this stuff, but by God, I'm going to figure it out. And that's how I learned a lot of this stuff, was really looking people in the eye that needed a service that didn't exist or I wasn't aware of. And that's why when I hold you guys accountable, if you can't do a deal, you ran out of skill set. This is why. This is what, like, these stories that give me cold chills, because I've looked these people in the eye and I challenged myself the same way I'm challenging you. It can be done. We just have to think outside of the box and have their best interest in mind. There's a lot of wrong ways to do it.
Yeah.
Al, I was waiting for you to step up. Welcome, our Colombian immigrant. How can we help you, Al?
Okay, we're in the South Florida market. And as you guys know, I'm from Colombia. So a lot of Colombians have been leaving the country for the past years. We know there's several circumstances. I have a dilemma, and this is in reference of how to work on the financing part. My sister and her husband, they need to rent a place. They've been paying for another place. They've been paying rent. So how can my thinking is, I want to get a place for them to pay rent, but I'm kind of very careful. I know they're here for the long run to stay. What would you guys suggest? Because we're talking about family members as well. So in reference of corporations.
So are you looking to profit from the deal or just get them into the desired housing situation?
I would like to get a place for them basically to pay me rent. Profit.
You're looking to profit. Okay. Do you have the capital for a cash acquisition?
I will have the down payment, nothing else than that.
Okay. Do you have other assets that you own free and clear that we could leverage or cross collateralize? Just trying to ask all the questions. So you've got to find a way to get yourself into the deal in such a way that you can get them into the deal. So you could acquire. The cleanest way to do this is, and you can do it in a probate situation as long as it's after the title transfers and once the probate settles and you've got the gift deed. In that case, then the family inherits the home free and clear, and 67% of homes in probate are in this situation. If you can find one of those where probate is closed, the asset is transferred on an interfamily transfer deed, then you can approach them and say, I'd like to make an offer and I'll pay you X% per month, or I'll pay you X price, or amortized over 30 years with a 5-year balloon. You can actually get yourself into the deal. The A to B contract is you buying a house with just straight owner finance. Then you can turn around and sell it to your family member or rent it to your family member. In the rental case, that's pretty simple. You make money off of rent and they are a tenant. So it's a landlord-tenant relationship. If you want to sell it to them so they have the ability to build equity, then you can do that as a lease with option to purchase and give them a 24 to 36 month option period. That would require them to have their own finance strategy to take your mortgage out, your first position private mortgage, or you can do a wrap. I think I crossed up my strategies there. I think that was it. So basically, you can acquire with owner financing, you can become a landlord, or you can acquire with owner financing and have a B2C transaction where you wrap the first mortgage you put in place with a second mortgage that you put in place, and they pay on that second, which allows you more money than you owe on the first, and you pocket the spread. So and then the other option would be a sandwich lease option where you go lease option a property rather than purchase it. Then you in turn lease option the property to your family, and then you collect a spread in the middle. I would say the person to learn a sandwich lease option from is probably Chris Prefontaine, who has been a guest on our show before. I think Fed's shaking his head. He's taking his course. I think Chris probably has the best sandwich lease option program out there. So if you, that in itself is a 6-hour class to learn how to do that properly, where it protects everybody's interest. But those are really your plays there.
Will it be an option to use a hard money lender?
I don't suggest it because I feel like I'm putting you in too much risk. If something goes wrong, if they decide to move home, if someone gets sick, if they get a job transfer, then you're stuck with an 18% loan. There's no profit left. You took all that risk for no profit. It just doesn't paper for me.
Okay.
Elle, I want you to look in the chat. Brandon Duran has actually offered to offer some of his insight on seller finance, sub to, and lease options. And
Thank you.
Brandon's actually working with one of our other business partner of mine, and a friend of mine. He's working with him on acquiring his portfolio. So he's well versed in this, has the experience. All right. Well, guys, I'm sorry we didn't get to everything in chat. We're past the top of the hour, and I am going to run. Was this a fun one, or was this a fun one? Show of hands. Anybody get any value from this? Anybody learn anything?
You dropped a lot of gold on this one, Chad. Yeah, really. And so did Dave.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shout out to David Pannell. He has been the man. Thank you.
Oh, and I think he left. He was quick on the trigger. All right. You'll see it in the recording, Dave. Guys, thank you guys all for being here, and have a great day.